And we begin another incredible week, Baruch Hashem, of learning 5 minutes of Tefillah, B'siyata D'Shemaya. We're in the middle of the Pirkei Siyum. The concluding remarks last week, we learned about Chana's incredible Tefillah, Alanar Hazez Palolti, that even though Eli was promising her a child that maybe was even greater, but she wanted that child, called Alanar Hazeh, for this child she davened. That when something comes through tefillah, it itself has an infused element of kedusha, and infused and enriched and enlightened piece of godliness in the item itself. And that's why she wanted that child. And he concludes that section in which he says that the Mishnah Berurah quotes from the Zayar that a person should always daven for his parnasa, for his food, for his sustenance. And now we have a deeper understanding of this, because then if all your parnasa, if your food came through tefillah, that makes every bite that you take, every bit, every morsel of bread, anything from your fridge has a bit of holiness in it. Because it came through a tefillah. Not only the bracha that you make on the item, but the fact that you daven to have the money to purchase that food elevates that item, and thereby one is eating a bit of holiness, a bit of kedusha. And he moves on and he concludes this part. The Pirkei Siyum is broken into parakim. So he concludes the first parak and he tells us that when it comes to tefillah, we have to have a special focus on it with regarding Talmud Torah, Limud Torah. And we'll preface that as much as we're about to discuss the necessity and the critical importance of davening for learning, and maybe the women who are listening are wondering, but wait, we don't learn Torah. But of course, a woman has an obligation to know Torah, the areas which are relevant to her, kashrus, the halachas of the kitchen, hilchei Shabbos, etc. And maybe she might wonder, I've tried, I've learned, I've read, but I can't seem to remember. There are so many laws. Maybe this is the reason. Teaches Rav Shimshon Pincus that we all know, we say the bracha each and every morning, that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the Melamed Torah La'ama Yisrael. Hashem is the greatest Rebbe, and at each and every moment, Kipshuta Imamish, he is teaching us Torah. And he continues and explains to us that which is known, that when one is sitting and learning Torah, Hashem, the Shechina, is Kinegdai. The Shechina is right there opposite him. So if we want something that is part and parcel with Hashem, that means we need this deep and intrinsic relationship to Hashem, to understand His word, to understand the Chachma, to understand the Torah. So how do you get there? Of course, only through having a constant and a deep, visceral connection that only comes through tefillah. And he proves this from the fact that the Kruvim were on top of the Aron HaKodesh, the Aron, the place, which is of course the Torah itself. And we know the Kruvim, sometimes they faced each other like two lovers facing one another. Sometimes they're a little bit faced aside, and sometimes, unfortunately, when Klal Yisrael wasn't fully complying with the will of God, those Kruvim turned back to back. But even when the Kruvim turned back to back, still, what were they? The Kruvim still were one entity, one unit, because Klal Yisrael, the Yidden, the Jews with their God, are always one unit. So when we're that one unit on top of the Aron, and we want to understand the unit, we want to understand the depth, we want to understand the Torah, it only could come through the constant medium of tefillah. And this now gives us a deeper appreciation for the words of Rav Chaim Vital, which he teaches and he taught us earlier in the Sefer, that a condition for chachma, for every bit of Torah you want to understand, is to daven, is to cry, is to beseech Hashem, because the intrinsic connection to Hashem is the Torah. And therefore, if one wants to be able to toil correctly in Torah, if one wants to understand Torah at any level, and as we mentioned, even if it's merely to know, and it's not merely, but even if it's to know the simple halachas that are relevant to a woman and each and every Jew, this only could come through the Torah. And this, of course, is the depth of how we've learned in the previous Shearim that the tefillah and the constant tefillah creates that bond, that deep and life force itself, which is the connection between man and his creator. And via that connection, and as strong as that connection comes, will aid one being able to learn, understand, and retain the Torah as well.